Welcome to Module 3. In this module, you will learn about sharing the road. Maintaining a safe distance between you and the car in front of you is one of the most important things to do when you share the road with other vehicles. This following distance should be at minimum 3 seconds worth of travel. This is known as the 3-second rule. In order to find your following distance, choose a clearly visible object some distance ahead of you, such as a sign or tree. When the car you are following passes that object, count off the seconds as 1001, 2002, 3003, and so on until you pass the same object. If you pass the object before you get to 3 seconds, you are following too closely.
Follow the 3-second rule to determine a good following distance. When you're driving, watch the vehicle in front of you drive past a fixed point, such as a street light, and start counting 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000. If you reach a fixed point before reaching 3 1000, you're following too closely.
Tailgating is the cause of most rear-end collisions. In adverse weather, or if the road is in poor condition, you will need a longer following distance, such as a 6 second or 8 seconds. Since it's harder to slow down quickly when the roads are wet, slippery, or uneven. Signaling your intent to move over or turn helps other motorists drive safely because they know what to expect. In a business or residential area, you must turn on your turn signals at least 100 feet before you reach the turn you're going to make. Sharing the road. The rules which determine right-of-way are the same nationwide. The following is the hierarchy of who has the right-of-way. We will go into further detail as well as point out some exceptions and special cases in a moment. First, emergency vehicles. Second, funeral processions. Third, pedestrians. Fourth, vehicles turning left with a protected left turn arrow. Fifth, vehicles going straight. Sixth, vehicles turning right. Seventh, vehicles turning left. Eighth, vehicles making a right turn at a red light. Now, let's find out who has the right-of-way when it comes to intersections. When 2 or more vehicles on different roadways arrive at a 4-way stop intersection at the same time, the vehicles on the left should yield to the vehicles on the right. When drivers reach a 4-way stop intersection at different times, the driver who arrived first has the right-of-way and should be the first to go. After the first driver goes, the right-of-way belongs to the vehicle to the right, just as in the first scenario. When 2 vehicles on different roadways reach an uncontrolled intersection at the same time wherein no traffic signs posted, the vehicle on the left should yield to the vehicle on the right. When 2 cars are stopped at an intersection with one driver signaling a left turn and the other car going straight ahead, the person who wants to turn left should wait for the person who is going straight to clear the intersection. Once it is clear, the driver turning left is allowed to turn. When being approached by an emergency vehicle using audible and visual signals such as lights and sirens, the law requires motorists to immediately do the following. Pull to the right side of the road and allow the emergency vehicle to pass. In some cases, you may need to come to a complete stop to allow the emergency vehicle to pass. If stopped at an intersection with 2-way traffic, remain stopped until the emergency vehicle passes. If making a left turn at an intersection and emergency vehicle is not visible, complete your turn and pull over to the right immediately. The right-of-way for funeral procession. Motorists encountering a funeral procession must yield the right-of-way to all vehicles in the funeral procession. The funeral procession has the same right-of-way as emergency vehicles, which means they don't have to stop for red lights. You may not drive between vehicles in an organized funeral procession, except when required to do so by a law enforcement officer, and you may not join a funeral procession for the purpose of securing the right-of-way or attempt to pass any vehicle in an organized funeral procession, except where a passing lane has been specifically provided. Wait until the procession is completely passed before you rejoin traffic. You will recognize that the procession is over because the last car will have its hazards on. a driver must come to a complete stop and yield the right-of-way to pedestrians in the following situations. When a pedestrian is in a marked crosswalk, on school days when children are in close proximity to a school zone crosswalk, when a pedestrian is in an unmarked crosswalk on the driver's side of the roadway and there are no traffic control signals, when making a turn at any intersection, motorists should be aware that even if there is no crosswalk painted on the road, every intersection is legally considered a crosswalk. When making a lawful turn on a red light after coming to a complete stop, at a stop sign or flashing red signal at an intersection, when a pedestrian enters a crosswalk before the traffic light changes, when a pedestrian is walking with a green light and walking person symbol or a walk signal, when a pedestrian is leaving or entering a street or highway, when passing on a two-lane, two-way roadway is not allowed on the following: in an area marked with a do not pass or no passing zone sign, and a solid yellow line on your side of the center of the roadway, on a hill or curve where it is not possible to see oncoming vehicles, within 100 feet of an intersection or railroad crossing, in a school zone or near school buses that are loading or unloading passengers, when the view is blocked within 100 feet of any bridge, viaduct, or tunnel, when a vehicle has stopped at a crosswalk or intersection to allow a pedestrian to cross, in a construction zone. All construction zones are no passing zones. On either side of the road have to come to a complete stop, in both same way and oncoming traffic, on either a two-lane, two-way street or a four-lane, two-way street. All vehicles on the road must stop when a school bus comes to a stop, lowers its arm, lets passengers exit the bus. They must remain stopped until the bus turns off the flashing lights and the stop arm is lowered. Failure to do so may result in a $175 fine and a 3-month suspension of your driver's license. The only exception for motorists having to come to a complete stop if a school bus has stopped and extended its arm is if it's on a 4-lane, two-way road. In that case, motorists traveling in the same direction of traffic as the bus will have to stop, but oncoming traffic does not. However, oncoming drivers should slow down and look for children crossing the road before proceeding. Before a school bus comes to a complete stop, the school bus driver will warn at least 100 feet or 200 feet in rural areas in advance of a stop by flashing amber and red lights on the front and rear of the bus. When encountering any railroad crossing, whether it is a controlled railroad crossing which features lights and gates, or approaching an uncontrolled railroad crossing that has no lights or gates, you should slow down and look as far down the track as you can in both directions for oncoming trains or railroad equipment. If it's safe to do so, proceed across the railroad crossing with caution. First, we'll address how to drive when you are at a controlled railroad crossing that has lights and gates. You must stop if the crossing gate is lowered or the signal is flashing. You must stop between 15 and 50 feet away from the crossing if there is a stop sign, the electric signal is flashing, or the crossing gate is lowered. Proceed across the tracks only after the gate is all the way up, the lights are no longer flashing, and you have visually checked both ways for any additional oncoming trains or railroad equipment. What if the railroad crossing has no lights, warning signs, or gates? You should slow down, look, and listen for signs of a train. Only proceed when it is safe to do so. Before crossing the tracks, make sure that there is enough room on the other side of the tracks so that you do not end up stuck on the tracks in the path of the train. If you are not certain that enough space exists, don't cross the tracks. When following a large vehicle, stay out of its blind spots. Either slow down so that you are no longer in its blind spot, or speed up and pass it. If you want to pass a truck, you should do so on the left side. Position your vehicle so the driver can see it in their left side mirror. Pay close attention to the large vehicle's turn signals and give large vehicles plenty of room to maneuver and make turns. Large vehicles make wide right turns and sometimes leave an open space to their right just before they turn. Always allow extra space for large vehicles, since size and weight affect a vehicle's ability to maneuver and stop. Motorcycles have the same rights and responsibilities as any other motor vehicle on the road. Because they are not as large as other vehicles, and the riders are more susceptible to injury should they be involved in a collision, it is important to pay special attention to motorcycles and allow them some leeway, especially in bad weather, or when road conditions are poor. More than 50% of all motorcycle collisions occur at intersections. The most common collision occurs when an oncoming automobile makes a left turn in front of a motorcycle. Although there may be enough room in the traffic lane for an automobile and a motorcyclist, remember that the motorcyclist needs the room to maneuver safely and is entitled to the entire lane. Do not share the lane. Allow at least 3 to 4 seconds of following distance when behind a motorcycle.
You should also be cautious around motorcycles. Motorcyclists need to slow down when they cross railroad tracks, drive around sewer covers, or drive on roads that have potholes. These uneven road surfaces could cause a loss of control if the motorcyclist doesn't slow down or change lanes to avoid them. Increase your following distance to keep these roadway users safe.
Drivers must yield the right-of-way to bicycles according to the same rules that apply to other drivers. When passing a bicycle, drivers should keep a minimum of 3 feet between their vehicle and the cyclist. Cyclists have incurred injuries as motorists open their car doors to exit without looking behind them, leaving the oncoming cyclist no time to maneuver around the open car door. To combat this, some states passed a law in 2019 that requires drivers to exit their car by using the Dutch reach. The Dutch reach means that drivers exiting their vehicles will cross their right arm over their body to open their door, which will encourage them to look in their side mirror and behind them for cyclists before opening their door. That would be all for Module 3.
Cyclists have become a more frequent sight on the roads during the last few years. Chicago currently has over 200 miles of bike lanes across the city, including striped bike lanes and barrier-protected bike lanes. As motorists, we need to make sure that we help bicyclists stay safe on the roads. Bicyclists should stay far to the right as safety allows, but they might need to move into the traffic lane to avoid potholes, sewer covers, or other road obstructions. In order to avoid collisions with bicyclists, a driver should maintain a minimum distance of 3 feet between their vehicle and the side of the bicycle. Intersections are especially dangerous areas for bicyclists and motorists. The Chicago Department of Transportation recommends that drivers exercise care when turning left at an intersection. Bicyclists approaching in the opposite direction are probably moving faster than they appear. Turning left in front of a bicyclist could result in a serious crash. When turning right, look behind you for cyclists riding in your blind spot and wait for them to pass before turning. It is illegal to cut off a bicyclist when you make a right turn. Never park or drive in a bike lane, and be alert for cyclists who have to ride around vehicles that are parked illegally in bike lanes. When driving near a trail or bicycle path, be especially alert for bicyclists who might be crossing the road. When a bicycle is in a crosswalk, the bicyclist has the right of way, just like a pedestrian. When you're pulling away from the curb, be sure to check your blind spot for bicyclists. You might not realize that a bicycle is there unless you check your blind spot before pulling into traffic. At some intersections, the city of Chicago has even installed special traffic signals that feature the image of a bike in order to remind bicyclists about the need to stop for red lights. Traffic safety is a shared responsibility, and all roadway users need to do their part.
Test your understanding by clicking and answering the questions below. Module 3 is complete. Please click on Mark as Completed button to finalize and proceed to Module 4 by clicking Next Lesson.